All right, everybody, Brad Anderson here, RE/MAX Peninsula. It's going to be one more video on seller paying buyers closing costs. Okay, and what I'd like to share with you is this. Let's say a seller has their house on the market for $250,000, and along comes a buyer, and this buyer, they're credit qualified to buy the house. They can afford the monthly payment. They're going to get a mortgage, and they have just enough cash on hand to cover their down payment. Maybe it's 5%, okay? But they don't really have the cash available to pay their own closing costs, even if they wanted to, right? So the only way they're a buyer in your marketplace to begin with is if they can get a seller to pay their closing costs. So again, you have a house for sale, it's $250,000, and this buyer who needs the closing costs comes to you and says, look, I want to buy your house, I'm qualified, I'll actually offer you more money for your house. I'll offer you $257,000 for your house if you'll pay $7,000 of my closing costs. Now, this is pretty much a wash for the seller, and the seller is likely to say, yeah, sure, that sounds fine. It's all the same to me. My net doesn't change. So the seller sells the house for $257,000 to that buyer. Now let's say in that same neighborhood, the next 5 houses that sell all sell under the same scenario. The buyer comes, the buyer needs the closing costs, can't buy without them, says to the seller, hey, you've got a $250,000 house. I'm willing to pay you more for it if you will pay my closing costs. So now we've got 6 comps out, that have sold in this neighborhood, in the public record, and they all sell for $257,000. So now let's say you have a house in this neighborhood that you want to sell, and you're looking at these comps and say, hey, my house is worth $257,000. Yeah, kind of. Yes, it is. But if you also say, yeah, but I'm not paying any closing costs. If the buyer wants the house, they can pay their own closing costs. Or, hey, why don't we get the realtors to chip in? They're making all the money, right? That's not going to happen. That can't happen because your house is only worth $257,000 if you're agreeing to pay that $7,000 in closing costs. That's part of the market condition. It's gotten embedded in the price. That's the reason that appraisers call agents and ask them, how much closing costs did your clients pay? They want to know. Hey, wouldn't it be unfair if you had your house under contract, and let's say you had your house under contract for $257,000, but there hadn't been any sales but one in the last 6 months, and that house sold for $249,000, okay? Now, they didn't pay any closing costs, and you're under contract, you're going to pay some closing costs, but they didn't pay any. But the appraiser's out there looking and saying, man, the only comp I can find for this house is $249,000. I don't know that I can justify $257,000 for this house. As the seller, don't you want that appraiser to know, hey, wait a minute, that guy didn't pay any closing costs. Of course he sold for less. Right? And I should be selling for more because I'm paying $7,000 in closing costs. Yes, you want him to know that, okay? But that's how it works both ways. The closing costs can be embedded in your market if you're in a market where seller paid closing costs is the norm. So I hope this has helped. And remember, I'm never too busy to help you or anyone you know with real estate. And I will be sure to give them the same individual attention I do for all my clients. You can reach me on my cell phone at 757-816-2968, and you can find me online at bradandersongroup.com. Hey, let me know what you think in the comments below. Like and subscribe the video and the channel, and I'll see you next time.